Chris Wacken is Penny Bodybuilder known is Lessing the Old World by JethroCool. Like, so the link to the video will be in the description below. Go and check them out. So listen to this Wacken in 3, 2, 1.
Mark Donovan felt the first wave of pain tear through his stomach just
There they go.
before sunrise. He was standing in front of the mirror inside Titan Fitness, his gym, his empire, when it happened. At first, he thought it was a muscle cramp from overtraining. He bent forward, gripping the edge of the counter, breathing through the pain. It wasn't like any pain he'd known before, not the burn of lactic acid or the ache after a heavy lift. This was deeper, twisting, foreign. It left him trembling. He stared at his reflection. For years, that mirror had been his altar. Every morning, he'd flex in front of it, admiring the hard lines of his abs, the clean symmetry of his shoulders. His body had been his resume, his pride, his proof that discipline conquered weakness. But now, looking at his reflection, he saw something different. His stomach looked swollen, the definition blurring. Sweat ran down his temples even though the gym was cold. Titan Fitness had opened 8 years ago. Mark and his wife, Lena, had built it together from nothing. Back then, Lena had been the brains behind the business. Marketing, nutrition plans, outreach. While Mark had been the face, the trainer everyone admired. He ran his gym like a battlefield. Clients either survived his sessions or quit. No excuses, he'd bark. Pain is proof you're alive. But over time, something dark had crept in. He'd started mocking people who didn't measure up, especially women struggling with post-pregnancy weight. He'd laugh about baby bellies, joke that motherhood was just an excuse for laziness. People laughed nervously, but Lena didn't. She'd try to pull him aside, remind him that bodies carried stories, that pain wasn't weakness. He'd shrug it off. I'm building warriors, he'd say, not charity cases. That morning, as the pain gripped him again, those words echoed back like ghosts. By midday, Mark could barely stand. He told himself it was food poisoning, or maybe an infection. But deep inside, something in him knew this wasn't random. For the past few weeks, his body had been changing. His appetite had shifted. He'd started craving things he used to tease Lena for eating: yogurt with honey, salted nuts, fruit at midnight. His chest felt sore, his skin sensitive, and his moods unpredictable. He'd snapped at a client the day before and nearly cried afterward for no reason. At night, he'd been waking up nauseated. Lena had noticed. She'd bring him tea, rub his back, and tell him to rest. He'd push her away. Rest is weakness, he'd growl. But she'd only look at him with that strange, knowing calm that unsettled him more than the pain. 3 weeks earlier, she told him she was working on a new supplement line, something revolutionary that balanced hormones naturally. She'd asked him to try a sample, just a teaspoon in his morning shake. Mark had agreed without hesitation. He trusted her. Now, as his stomach tightened again, he wondered if the supplement had anything to do with it. The next few days became a blur of exhaustion. Mark still forced himself to train, but each rep felt like he was lifting through mud. The mirror became unbearable to look at. His once sculpted abdomen looked bloated, round. His t-shirts felt tighter. He pinched
you look like a baby bump.
at his waist, furious. Rumors began to spread among clients. Some whispered that he was ill. Others
No, he's panicked. Look at the baby bump.
joked about karma. Titan Fitness, once a temple of perfection, began to feel like a prison. Every clang of metal echoed his own decline. One night, Lena found him sitting on the locker room floor, drenched in sweat, trembling. You need to rest, she said softly. I said I'm fine. She knelt beside him. You're not fine, Mark. Your body's telling you something. He turned his face away. Bodies don't talk. They obey. Lena looked at him for a long time before standing. Maybe it's time yours stopped obeying. Mark woke the next morning with pain so sharp it doubled him over. He could barely breathe. Panic clawed at his chest. He staggered to the bathroom, staring at himself in the mirror. His stomach was visibly swollen now, stretched. He pressed his palm against it and felt an odd pressure, as if something inside shifted under his touch.
It's a baby.
He stumbled backward, terrified. When Lena came into the room, he shouted, "What's happening to me?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she went to the kitchen and returned with a small brown bottle. the same one she'd used for his morning shakes. You wanted to understand strength, she said quietly. Real strength. He stared at her, realization dawning like lightning. You did this to me? I didn't poison you, she said. I gave you empathy. What the hell does that mean? You mock women for their bodies, for what they
Yep,
carry,
you
for
did,
what
yep.
they survive. I
Yep.
thought maybe if you could feel a fraction of what they feel, you'd understand. The formula triggers hormonal responses, pregnancy simulations used in old research trials. You're not in danger, but you'll feel everything they feel. The fatigue, the bloating, the pain, the changes you can't control. Mark's face went pale. You're insane. Maybe, she said softly,
He said,
but so were you. He stormed out, slamming the door, but her
oh,
words followed him like a shadow. Over the next month, Mark's world collapsed. His body no longer obeyed him. He couldn't train properly. Weights he once lifted effortlessly now felt impossible. His sleep vanished. His emotions swung between rage and despair. Some nights, he cried without knowing why. Clients
wow.
began quitting. New members whispered behind his back. The man who had once embodied perfection now looked human, too human. The breaking point came during a Saturday boot camp session. Mark was demonstrating squats when a deep, wrenching pain seized him mid-movement. He gasped, his knees buckling, collapsing in front of everyone. The room went silent. As he lay there, sweating, the humiliation burned worse than the pain. In his mind, he saw the faces of every woman he'd mocked, struggling, trembling, holding back tears while he laughed. The memory made him sick. Lena was the one who helped him off the floor. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. That night, he confronted her again, voice raw. You wanted to destroy me.
Yep, he's a 100% a baby bump.
She shook her head. No, Mark. I wanted to rebuild you. He laughed bitterly. Well, congratulations. You've ruined everything. Not everything, she said. Just your illusion of strength. By week 12, the pain had become constant. Mark could barely function. His abdomen felt heavy and alien. Every breath was a struggle. He'd started keeping a journal, not out of vanity, but to make sense of what was happening. Day 76. Can't sleep. Feel movement under the skin. Not sure if it's real or my mind breaking. I deserve this. Day 82. Lena made soup. I thanked her. First time in years I said thank you without sarcasm. Day 90. Pain hit hard tonight. Like something tearing inside. Thought I was dying. Then remembered all the times I told women, pain makes you stronger. I
Yep.
didn't know what I was saying. The experience stripped him down to nothing.
Really?
He stopped shaving, stopped checking the mirror. His voice softened, his anger dulled. For the first time, he began listening to his body, to the quiet, to Lena. One evening, Sarah, one of the mothers he'd mocked, visited the gym. She found him sitting alone, breathing through another wave of pain. Hurts, doesn't it? She said gently. He nodded. I'm sorry, he whispered. Don't be sorry, she said. Be different. He looked up at her, eyes red. I will be. The final wave came 2 nights later. Mark was alone in the gym, sitting on the training mat. The pain built slowly, then exploded into a searing, rhythmic contraction that made him scream. He fell to his knees, clutching his stomach. The agony was indescribable, sharp, deep, unrelenting. Lena arrived minutes later. She'd known it was coming. She'd seen the signs. She knelt beside him, holding his hand. Breathe, she said softly. Let it happen. He tried to fight it, but the pain swallowed him. His body trembled, sweat pouring down his face. He screamed until his throat tore, until the echoes filled the empty gym. Then, suddenly, silence. He collapsed forward, shaking. Lena caught him, cradling him against her chest. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Mark whispered, It's over. She nodded. Yes, it's over. He closed his eyes, tears spilling freely. I didn't know. I didn't know it was like this. Lena brushed the hair from his forehead. Now you do. The next morning, the swelling began to fade. The pain dulled to a memory, but something in him had shifted permanently. When he looked in the mirror, he no longer saw perfection. He saw a survivor. He returned to the gym weeks later, moving slowly, carefully. The place looked different now, less like a battlefield, more like a community. Lena had rearranged things, adding yoga mats, posters about recovery and body positivity. Mark didn't argue. He started small, leading gentle sessions focused on form, breathing, and self-respect. He began listening to clients, asking about their stories. Women who'd once feared his judgment now found comfort in his presence.
Really?
He apologized to each one personally. Some forgave him instantly, others took time. He accepted both. Months passed. Titan Fitness transformed. The new slogan appeared on the wall. Every body has a story. Mark stood beneath it
Yeah.
one evening, hands resting lightly on his abdomen. Sometimes he still felt faint echoes, a flutter, a phantom ache. He never told Lena. He took it as a reminder. Years later, Titan Fitness became known not for its champions, but for its compassion. The walls were covered with photographs of real people, mothers, survivors, the elderly, each captioned with words like courage, resilience, becoming. Mark never bragged about his past anymore. When people asked about the shift, he'd tell them a simpler story, that he once forgot what strength really meant, and someone loved him enough to remind him the hard way. On quiet nights, after closing, he'd turn off the lights, let the silence fill the room, and stand in front of the same mirror where his downfall began. The man staring back at him looked older, humbler, but there was peace in his eyes. Sometimes he'd feel that
Really?
familiar dull ache in his abdomen and place a hand there, remembering, not as punishment, but as proof. Proof that understanding had a cost, and he had finally paid it. He would whisper softly into the dark, "You're forgiven." Then, as he locked the gym door and stepped into the night air, he'd think about Lena, the woman who'd risked everything to teach him empathy. The woman who'd
Really?
shown him that real strength isn't measured by how much weight a person can lift, but how much
Mm,
truth they can carry. So here's the question. If it took living another person's pain to finally understand their strength, would you still call it revenge? Or would you call it a
maybe.
gift?
Maybe. The bodybuilder loan is less in the over, but take a cost. The link to the video will be the description below. Go and check them out. So drop a like if you like and comment below if you want to see more reaction like this one. And subscribe if you want to. And click the bell so you can be notified when I upload, post, and collab. You know what? Bye. Wow.